opportunity we have to use words is an opportunity for truth, to create truth. That's an important thing. And then here's the deeper reality internally for us, is that truth is not simply a thing to be spoken, but it's a way of living. You know, Proverbs will speak and other things about guarding your heart, for in your heart everything comes out of. And Psalm 51 talks about being truthful in the deepest part of our heart, because when we're truthful inside of our heart, then truth comes out of us in the way that we live. Now, the second part of that is when we are truthful, we need to learn to accept truth from each other. In this community, in Jesus' community, truth must reign. And when we are with each other, when we communicate with each other, we need to do so speaking the truth to each other in love. And so we need to be able to accept those words of truth from each other in love. Now, is there ever a place, it's the last thing I want to talk about, is there ever a place where it's okay to lie? That's an interesting issue, right? I'm going to get through this pretty quickly. You can imagine a small little child, cross their fingers right behind, says yes when they don't mean it, right? You know, somehow that makes it okay. But let me ask you this. When there are Nazi soldiers pounding on your door, looking for Jews, is it okay to lie? When you have a patient, and that patient asks you, doctor, is my disease terminal? Is it okay to lie? Very serious issues, right? I want to point out there are issues that Scripture will... God is at work. And in that area, I'd really just encourage you that there are covenants of faithfulness that we build. Covenants of faithfulness. And there are people that will join us in covenants of faithfulness to which truth is a basis of that covenant. And then there are others that we're connected to where there is no covenant. There is no covenant. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who died at the hands of the Nazis in World War II, safely protected Jews and lied on their behalf. And he gave this illustration. A teacher comes to a kindergarten class and asks a child in the class, "Does your father drink to excess?" And the child knew the implication would be bad for his family, and it was in a public setting. And the child comes back and says no, even though the child knows that his father came home drunk and would beat his family members. Bonhoeffer gave this illustration as a metaphor for what he was doing with the Nazi regime. And his thinking was this, that child belonged to a covenant of faithfulness to his family and needed to protect his family. And that teacher, in calling for truth out of that child in an unfair way, in a public place that would be demeaning and hurtful, was the one that was crossing the line of unfairness. It was the teacher's responsibility to have asked that question in private, in a place where it could be helpful, in a place where there would not be harm ultimately, but help to the person behind that was suffering. And so there are covenants of faithfulness. And I would just encourage you to look for an author by the name of Glenn Stassen, who teaches at Fuller Seminary, that has a book that delves into these places where there are very difficult issues, and where God's calling and protection is sovereign over when truth should be produced. Truth is the basis of a relationship that's made to care for one another. But when there is not a relationship of mutual care, should there be truth? And other examples where this comes up is in slavery and in other issues where people were trying to restore justice in a place where there clearly wasn't any. Doctors obviously have a Hippocratic oath, and so there they do have a relationship, a caring relationship with their patient, and they will give truth, and they're obligated to do that, and that's good. So Jesus calls us to be truth-telling people in every word that we live. In every word that we live. Because that is the goodness of the kingdom, and that's where our relationships really can thrive. It's a witness to our world because the world doesn't see that. And it's a place of peace for our souls and a place for our relationships to thrive.